Hello everybody and welcome to the second virtual flower show, which is hosted by some of the top exhibitors that you'll see at the flower shows across the country. Joining us today to answer all your questions, we've got Lynn Dibley from Dibley's Nursery, we've got Alec White from Primrose Hall Nursery, Mark McDonald from Todd's Botanics, Vicky Fox from Plant A Go Go, Mary and Terry Baker from the Botanic Nursery, and we've got Matt Soper from Hampshire Carnivorous Plants. So we've got the experts with us today, and we've got a lovely range of questions that we've been sent in, and we're going to get through as many as we can over this next session. So first one we've got in is from Jenny, and this is a hookery question. So I think this is one for you, Vicky. It says, my plant is pushing itself out of the ground and looks ugly. What shall I do?
Okay, well, hookeries tend to look like that when they're getting older. They're actually going stalky. They're not really pushing themselves out of the ground. And it's a really easy solution. And the sooner you do it, the better. If you let it get really long, the stalk, there's a little bit more risk when you're doing it. So all you have to do is just dig it up and lower it down. If it's not possible to lower it down, then just snap it off and try and reroot it in some multi-purpose compost. And that's it really, and it's really simple.
If you can't dig it up like you say, Vicky, and you cut that tall leggy plant down to just an inch or two above ground level into that, it's almost like a woody stem, isn't it? Will it regrow from that?
They don't actually like the main stem being cut. They don't like being cut at all, those stems. They prefer you to break them. So whatever you do, always snap it. As I say, if there is growth at the bottom, you can just snap that large one off. But very often they all go leggy together. You've got nothing to lose, so you can snap it off, let the others grow up, and take your cutting as well, or dig it up and lower it down.
Okay, right, thank you for that. Next one is from Sandra Walline, and this is about African violets. Sandra's got two plants and they seem to be eaten by an almost microscopic black dot. She thinks it's an insect. The leaves have got patches of brown and the plant looks in distress. Is there anything she can do to rescue it, or should she just throw it away? Lynn, this might be one for you.
Yeah, I mean, black dots, it could be aphid, black aphid on it. Brown spots tend to suggest maybe it's got too wet. So I would suggest possibly spraying with an insecticide to see if you can get rid of the pest. Using something like plant invigorator. It's a good boost to the plant as well as getting rid of things like aphid. And make sure the plant's in a nice warm situation. It likes to be above about 18, 19 degrees centigrade, and keep it on the dry side. If you need to repot it, make sure you add some perlite into the compost to make it nice and light.
Okay. Jolly good. So it's savable, hopefully, that one.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay, we've got a question from Yvette. This is a peony question. When is the best time of the year to lift and divide a large clump? The roots are rather entrenched, but there are too many in this particular space. So it sounds like it's a bit overcrowded. When would you suggest it's lifted, Alec?
Well, reasonably soon. I'd say towards the end of September, middle of October. You don't want to do it too soon, because the plant is still growing and it's sending out little white hairy roots right now, which is going to send the plant into good stead for the spring. So you don't want to damage those. So I would wait until the end of September, middle of October. Be careful when you're digging it up not to stamp on the buds, because they'll only be just below the surface. But a sharp spade, you can divide it in end of September, mid-October, and you should be fine. Plant it straight away though when you've divided it. Don't leave it out of the ground for too long.
And I know often people talk, there's a lot of talk about the planting depths, isn't there, with peonies, not to go too deep, because what will happen if you do plant that tuber fleshy root too deep?
Well, with herbaceous peonies and the new intersectional peonies, really they can't be planted more than an inch or two below the surface. If they're too deep, any more than that, really, they just won't flower. They'll have wonderful foliage. It'll be absolutely fantastic looking plant, but it will never flower. So you want to make sure that, yeah, just inch or two below the surface. It's quite the opposite with tree peonies though. With grafted tree peonies, they really want to be 4 to 6 inches below the soil. So it gets a bit more complicated with tree peonies, but I think the question was about herbaceous peonies.
Yeah.
For those, 1 to 2 inches below the surface will be perfect.
Okay, that is great. Thank you very much for that one. Now I'm going to give this one to Mary and Terry because we're not sure what it is. So I thought, being as there are two of you there, you might be able to work it out between you, because this is from Ruby, and I think there might be a typo here. So it says, "How do I best support my give a plant in the garden?" Now, I'm not quite sure whether that's a typo. But this plant is, it's keeled over. It's 1.77 meters tall, so it's a very precise measurement there. Ruby, thank you. And the trunk is 7 centimeters in diameter. So whatever it is, it's completely keeled over. So it wants to be brought up and supported. So can you give us a bit of general advice on how to support a tall plant that's blown over, but we don't know what it is?
Do you want to handle that one?
No, I think you can.
Okay.
Anything really. What would you do with a big plant that part of it has fallen over?
It sounds as if it's top heavy, so and it sounds a little bit like a yucca. So it's going to be quite spiny in leaf, quite bayonet-like. So be careful. But I would give it a really good stake, and then ideally some sort of tree tie, or to do a temporary job, a bit of soft rope, just to tie toward the top of the plant and keep everything nice and secure.
Mm-hmm.
But it really will need to be a fairly substantial stake. So I would affect a sort of temporary measure to start with, and then buy yourself a really good stake and a proper tree tie as soon as you can.
So it needs to be kept upright and firm, because if it's rocking around, it's just going to damage the roots, of course, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it is a yucca,
That is always a possibility, yeah.
Yeah. Mark?
If it is a yucca, I obviously missed that bit, but if it is a yucca, you could just take a stem cutting and reroot it and just bury a section of the stem to make it upright again.
Yeah.
We
I don't think we're fully sure what it is.
No, it does say support my giver plant, and I think that as probably predictive text has taken the word and changed it. So, but whatever it is, I mean, Tree, what type of steak are we talking? Fillet, sirloin here? Does it really matter?
Ribeye for preference.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, all right, thanks for that.
Not
one.
overcooked.
No, exactly. Matt, we've had a few questions here on Venus flytraps, and this one is from Mark. He says he'd like to know what he can use instead. This is for a Venus flytrap, by the way. What he can use instead of rainwater, because it's been very dry and his rainwater butts have all run empty. So what can he use?
Yeah, we're getting asked this a lot at the moment with this dry weather we've been having. And Venus flytraps are really sensitive to tap water, especially chlorinated or water from hard water areas. The alternatives are distilled water, water that's gone through a reverse osmosis filter, and you really do need to go that far with them. If you use anything with chlorine or hard water, they go over in about 3 weeks. The time delay makes people think it's not the water that's causing the problem, but it takes about 3 weeks, they start to go yellow and black. If you can, I mean, we get enough rainfall in this country. If you can collect it and keep it, is the best thing. But Venus flytraps, as I say, you've got to use distilled water with them.
Somebody told me, and you tell me if this is a myth or not, that if you haven't got rainwater in a rainwater butt, if you get tap water and leave it in a bucket for a few days, the chlorine will sort of go away, will dissipate. And I've been told to add a few drops of vinegar in there to make it acidic. Do you reckon that would work, or is it a bit sort of risky to try that?
The chlorine does gas off slightly, but where we are here in Hampshire, we're very chalky and hard. And our water is about 285 parts per million, whereas some rainwater can be 0.7. So you're not going to get rid of that hardness if you're in a hard water area. Some people are lucky down in the West Country where it's very acidic, and you can almost get away with lightly chlorine, putting that water out, because the chlorine will gas off and you can get away with it. But I mean, the best rule really, I know it seems a bit extreme, is to use distilled water, but that is why most people lose them. That's why they're considered difficult plants.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that tip there, Matt. And then, Mark, we've got one here on Cannas. This is a canna from John. He's growing it in a pot. He bought it last year. It's growing well. It's making lots of foliage. It looks really healthy. He's giving it high potash feeds, but he hasn't got any flowers. Is there still time this year, or is it not going to flower till next year?
Yeah, no, it should flower this year. It should be flowering by now, and it should flower through to the first frost cutting it down. I would suspect he's not feeding it enough, or if it's in a, did you say it was in a pot or in the ground?
It's in a pot. It's in a pot.
Okay.
I don't know what
There might be too much growth in there, and the soils become a bit depleted of nutrients. So up the feed. Cannas normally flower after the 6th or 7th leaf, so that's a way they can quickly check. It's a bit of a rule of thumb, but keep feeding and you'll get more flowers right through to the frosts. When that stem's flowered, you can cut that back to the ground to encourage more shoots to come up.
Okay, that's great. So good luck with that, John. Hope you get some flowers on it soon. So we're going to take a short break now, and then we'll be back with you in a few minutes with more questions.